nobody seems to be scared of Kemi Badenoch, which may explain, least of all the Labour Party, which may explain why a rather splendid story by Jessica Elgot, the deputy political editor of The Guardian, has been picked up with rather less enthusiasm by her colleagues on Fleet Street and in the broadcast media than these various stories about Angela Rayner's house, or indeed her fondness of a vape or a glass of wine. But to my eye, and I'm as guilty potentially of footballification as anybody else, but to my eye, this is a rather bigger story because it potentially involves a rather graver offence, particularly for somebody, and this is the crucial point, particularly for somebody who has made great hay out of telling other politicians to come clean about things up to and including Rachel Reeves's CV. And Jessica Elgot joins me now. Even I knew, and I haven't followed her career with great enthusiasm, Jessica, that Kemi Badenoch had been offered a place, indeed a scholarship, at Stanford University to study medicine when she was a mere stripling of 16 years old. I don't think I knew that she claimed she couldn't pursue it or she couldn't follow her medical dreams later in life because the college that she went to when John Major was Prime Minister was so rubbish. But we may get on to that. You've been looking into the original claim.
Yeah, so Kemi Badenoch's made this claim. I think it's in 4 places that I've found it written up, which is that she received an offer for a partial scholarship, is what she described it as, when she was 16, on the basis of her SAT results. Those are the kind of US standardised tests that US students take to get into university, which she took at 16, which is very early, prodigiously early. And that she got in for medicine, or she sometimes describes it as pre-med. In the US, medicine is by and large a graduate degree, so you can't do it unless you've already got an undergraduate degree. And there are some universities that offer something called pre-med, sort of a combination of an undergraduate degree in science, but Stanford isn't one of them. So that's the first thing that kind of piqued my interest in this story of hers.
So she was offered a place on a course that doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
But even if you were to kind of give her the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe it's a colloquialism that if you wanted to pursue medicine and we're going to do sort of science undergrad, maybe that's how you might describe it to a UK audience. When I started talking to admissions staff about it, they said they just don't offer partial scholarships to international students because they know they can't afford the very high fees by and large. So they only ever offer a few full scholarships,
or
at least they did during that era. And I in fact found the admissions officer who was in charge of international admissions and scholarships for international students during the time that Kemi Badenoch applied. And he remembers that he didn't admit her. In fact, he says he knows he didn't admit her because these students who were applying from Africa at the time, and Kemi Badenoch was living in Nigeria, he only admitted during at that time students from South Africa and Kenya. Those are the only ones who got the scholarships. And he also remembered that he didn't, barely admitted any women. So, it might seem to some of your listeners, well, how can this admission officer remember everyone? But because of those facts, he just knows that he didn't.
It's a trident of memory, isn't it? It's a 3-pronged memory because he would never have offered anybody a place on test scores alone. He'd never offered a partial scholarship, and he hadn't offered anything to anybody in Nigeria.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. They have insisted that not only did Kemi Badenoch get an offer from Stanford on the basis of SATs alone, something that lots of admissions officers, and I've speaking to a vice provost of Ivy League universities, say just isn't, that's not possible. That just never happens, not even for royalty or kind of internationally renowned child prodigies. And they say not only she get, but she got it from lots of universities, the Conservatives claim, but including ones in the UK, which then again, it makes it quite strange to understand that she then went to a South London sixth form college and did A-levels. If she'd already received offers at 16, none of this, makes a huge amount of sense.
No, it doesn't. And obviously, she famously never commits gaffes or misspeaks and therefore never has to apologise for anything. But how has she responded, or how have her people responded to your revelations, to your report?
I mean, they just insist that it did happen, despite lots of very eminent people saying that the scenario she describes is impossible, but they don't have the. I'm not expecting her to produce actually the offer on paper from 30 years ago. I mean, I think that would be ludicrous. But I don't. It's very hard to understand why, in the face of this, they would just insist that she is the only.
Saying it's all true. We've got the offer. It just goes to a different school, ironically enough. I don't want to tempt you into territory you're not comfortable in, Jessica, because obviously you have friends and colleagues in the lobby working for other papers. But if this was Angela Rayner, it would probably be on more front pages than The Guardian's.
Well, look, I can understand also that, perhaps people think that Kemi Badenoch's future as leader of the Conservative Party is not necessarily going to be a particularly long one, and so I can understand, if that, the Deputy Prime Minister is potentially a bigger target, and there may well be sort of merit in what colleagues are investigating about Angela Rayner. I think particularly we at The Guardian would write about both of them without fear or favour, but I think that, of course, and I also do understand that sometimes, when you've got exclusives, when you've got interviews with so many people, and it did take me about a week to speak to everyone I needed to, that it's harder to then follow those up. But yes, of course, I mean, if
she's lied about something as intrinsic as her early education, it is actually significant, even if her leadership of the Conservative Party isn't long for this world. But do we know what happens next? Keir Starmer's not the kind of politician that's likely to bring this up later today at PMQs, is he? It's not.
I think that's. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about. I'm sure that the other political parties will want to keep bringing this up. But I think the main thing is what does it mean for the Conservative Party? There is obviously a lot of doubt about Kemi Badenoch's leadership amongst lots of Conservative MPs and lots of people in the cabinet, and loads of those people won't speak, on the record. But I received a lot of texts from a lot of Conservatives after that story broke.
Interesting.
I don't think her version of events is ringing true with them.
I know. I mean, it's hard to see how it could. I do have one bone to pick with you, Jessica. Alex has been in touch. He wants to know that if it was impossible for Kemi Badenoch to get an offer like this at that age, then how do you account for the career of Doogie Howser, MD?
Yeah, no, that's perhaps she's got confused with that story.
And she used a lovely phrase, didn't she? Was it a prodigious talent or a child prodigy, an academic child prodigy? So I should add, for context, that Kemi Badenoch went on to achieve a B in biology, a B in chemistry, and a D in maths, something that she has blamed on her teachers at her college, which is a healthy bit of advice on A-level results day. If things don't go as well as you hope, lads, blame it all on your teachers. Take no responsibility for it whatsoever yourself, and insist that you never commit gaffes. And you did get an offer from Stanford University, despite Stanford University never having issued such an offer when you were 16. And anyone who says otherwise is a big fat smelly liar. There you go, that's politics.